Created by Bill Finger and Bob Kane in 1939, Batman is a character that really needs no introduction. Or does he? See, if I asked 10 different people the question, who is Batman, then I'd probably get 10 different, yet similar answers. He's a lot of things to a lot of people, over the years being seen as either a realistic, dark, gritty vigilante, a cerebral, methodical GCPD consultant, or even a fun magenta queer icon who regularly converses with a floating impish version of himself. But despite all of these wildly varied versions of the character, different artists and writers and filmmakers picking and choosing which aspects of a 100-year-old mythological character to focus on and highlight, there are certain foundational elements to Bruce Wayne and Batman that are always the same. He's a billionaire playboy philanthropist, an old money scion and inheritor of the Wayne family legacy, his father and mother being two upstanding, prominent, deeply powerful people embedded in the social, political, historical, and geographical infrastructure of Gotham City. One night they took old baby Bruce out to see The Mask of Zorro, Joe Chill guns them down, string of pearls hitting concrete, kiss from a rose on the grave. This traumatic event inspires Bruce to don a pointy-eared cowl, becoming Batman, shadowy protector of Gotham City. He lives in a manor on the edge of the city with his butler and surrogate father Alfred Pennyworth, a manor that hides the secret location of the Batcave, Batman's base of operations, home to a suite of high-tech, expensive toys cooked up by Bruce's workers and inherited family business Wayne Industries. And also, there's a giant penny and a dinosaur in there if you're consuming the correct Batman stories. He fights tirelessly each night against a legendary rogues gallery of animal, nature, and playing card-themed villains like the Penguin and the Riddler and Two-Face, and he's a sometimes adoptive father to various stray kids and teens from around Gotham that need a little guidance, a place to call home, and fit inside size small spandex. He's a hero, he's a shadow, he's a detective, he's lonely, he's rich, he's drowning in angst, he practices self-restraint and never, ever kills. He struggles to save the city he lords over from itself. I know who Batman is, you know who Batman is, your great-grandma knows who Batman is. Okay, so now what if we took all of that and threw it out the window? The citizens of Gotham have amassed at City Hall, demanding answers from Mayor Jim Gordon. Gordon's an ex-cop, called to civil service after growing tired of fighting within a system more interested in upholding a corrupt status quo than doing the hard work of making Gotham a safer place for all its citizens. He believed that as mayor, he could make a difference, could shape Gotham into something better. He was wrong. Someone in the crowd hurls an insult, demands an answer as to what he intends to do about the masked lunatics rampaging through the streets of Gotham. Once regular Gothamites now putting on black skull masks, driven to gunning down innocent bystanders and burning down homes and businesses in exchange for the cryptocurrency Black Coin. These makeshift criminals tearing the city apart, dubbed by the media as the Party Animals. Gordon doesn't have an answer. The institutions he represents and commands, they're doing all they can, but they're out of their depth. Years of growing lazy and complacent, of not striving for that better future for Gotham, of politicians and corporations reaping off deals brokered between the GCPD and the various crime families, of forgetting who they serve and who they're accountable to, have led to this. There's nothing anyone can do but sit by and watch as the party animals feast off the bones of an already dead Gotham. But someone stands up, the deputy mayor, to try and still the crowd, to offer them a word of hope, to rally the people of Gotham together against the party. The doors of City Hall burst open. 3 armed individuals rush in, their heads covered by horrific, skull-shaped helmets. These are the party animals. They open fire. Gordon is shot. His daughter Barbara, a GCPD officer, rushes to his side. He's injured but okay. In the background, the party animals are taunting their terrified captives when suddenly, long claw-like tendrils grab one of the party animals, dragging him and his 2 buddies out of City Hall, the doors slamming shut. The cops secure the perimeter. They look out the windows and see they're surrounded. No match for the Legion amassing outside. Barbara goes to take a look and is met by the face of a masked man. He tells her not to open the doors. Outside, the party animals that were dragged out of City Hall lay stunned. Who grabbed them? Who even was that? we can see above them the shape of something dark and ominous hiding in the shadows. They see the figure and open fire, bullets bouncing off its sides, the same wicked tendril we saw earlier poking through near its shoulder. What even is this thing? One page turn later, we find out. This is the Batman of the currently running series Absolute Batman, one of the flagships of DC Comics' new line of alternate Absolute Universe comics, a universe designed to subvert fan expectations. While the look of this new beefy brutal boy Batman is clearly drawing inspiration from the physicality of Frank Miller's legendary Dark Knight Returns, what he turns out to be is something else entirely. That brutality and imposing nature and their associations with a Batman who's losing control of himself being the first thing this new series sets about turning on its head with this first fight scene. From the edges of his cape shoot prehensile claws that wrap around the necks of his opponents, sending them flying into open windows and around lampposts, those same claws acting as hands he uses to walk on, perfect for simultaneously busting the teeth of two party animals with a perfectly executed split kick. He's fast and agile and imposing, but as more party animals ascend the steps of City Hall, eager to take a crack at this mysterious newcomer, we finally get a chance to see what this new Batman is really capable of. And over the course of the ensuing fight, we see Batman do the following things. Remove his ears, revealing that they double as throwing knives. Beat the party animals to a pulp, stomping on legs and cracking arms over knees hard enough everyone can hear the bones break. Retrieve his knives from the body of a screaming party animal, cutting into those nearby with those knives, drawing as much blood as possible. Remove the bat insignia from his chest, revealing that it's actually the head of a bat-shaped axe he uses to chop off the hand of this equally brutish party animal. Send the party animals running away in fear, only to detonate an explosive planted in the steps of City Hall, opening up a massive pit that traps the fleeing villains. And through all that visceral, destructive mayhem, he's precise enough to miss every artery, to break every bone in such a way that it can be mended, to kill not a single person he eviscerates. Brutal displays of ultraviolence are nothing new when it comes to the Caped Crusader. He's been shown time and again killing people, brutalizing Gotham's underworld in sometimes very cruel and extremely unusual ways, so I can forgive anyone who takes a look at this overly edgy pile of meat and immediately writes it off not only as something we've seen from the character before, but as something Zack Snyder would do. Yet, it somehow isn't. See, the thing about Zack Snyder's Batman that I think people hate isn't that he's overly violent, but that he feels out of control. Batman has always been a fantasy of control, of a man so dedicated and focused that he's always, in every situation, perfectly in control of what's happening around him. And the drama comes when all his preparation, all of his training, fails him, and he loses that control, just like he lost it that night in Crime Alley. It's a tight line to walk then, to take these superhuman levels of physical and mental restraint and then stretch them out so far as to suggest they might break, but there's no better person at writing that line than Absolute Batman's writer, Scott Snyder. Starting his career in comics by collaborating with, of all people, Stephen King on the series American Vampire, Scott Snyder is, at his core, a horror writer. From the Mirror House and serial killer James Gordon Jr. during his run on Detective Comics, to his seminal, now legendary run on Batman with artist Greg Capullo, to his creation of the Batman Who Laughs, Snyder has always highlighted the darker, more sinister aspects of Batman's world, taking concepts and characters that were always based on gothic tropes and cranking the dial up to 11. So with Absolute Batman, a series set in a blank slate alternate universe, Snyder has been given free rein to disassemble the Dark Knight and the inhabitants of Gotham City, reforming them into newer, more gruesome configurations. Take Arc 1's villain, Roman Sionis, aka Black Mask, for example. Usually depicted as the traumatized and abused failson of a wealthy Gotham family turned masked crime boss, he's a somewhat underutilized generalized B-tier Batman villain with not much to offer outside of pitting Batman against another rich guy with a cool mask. What Snyder and artist Nick Dragotta do, though, is take that villain and morph him into something unforgettable. The Sionis of Absolute Batman being not just a crime boss billionaire with a thing for creepy masks, but this decrepit abomination. Why do his henchmen have purple skin and tentacles? Why does he keep the death masks of various world historical figures on his yacht? Why does he grapple this man to death? Why does he wear this obscene, rotund, inhuman skull mask, its surface polished to a reflective mirror sheen? This is the black mask of Absolute Batman, a man motivated not by past trauma, not for a need to get revenge on Batman, but by the fact that his power, his money, his way of life has removed him so far from the circumstances of everyday human life so as to render him alien. His goals are simple, really. To plunge Gotham into chaos by liberating people from the societal structures that keep them down. A man who has seen firsthand that we live among the picked-at bones of a once breathing world. There is no history. There is no justice. There is no hope. There's only what you can take for yourself. Scott Snyder has always had a knack for writing really great Batman villains, and what he does with Black Mask is take what is an otherwise creepy but still kinda goofy, crazed mobster character and turn him into a malefic disease. But if this is what Snyder does to a character like Black Mask, then how does he handle Gotham's more famous villains? What does he do, if anything, with Batman's legendary rogues gallery? Well, to answer that question, we have to take a closer look at what exactly it is that separates this new Absolute Batman from the one we're used to. What makes Batman Batman? No, really, ask yourself that. What makes him Batman? Is it his collection of ridiculous cars and motorcycles and planes? Is it his suite of high-tech gadgets? Is it his knack for detective work? Is it his fastidious discipline? Is it his trauma? To all those questions, Scott Snyder just sort of shrugs his shoulders. Because the thing about Batman, the thing at his core, the thing from which spring all of the peripheral traits fans love to obsess and argue over, the thing that makes Batman Batman, is that he's a bat! The very first thing we see on page 1, panel 1 of Absolute Batman is a plaque at the Gotham Zoo of a cartoon bat with the inscription, "Bats are crazy." This motif of these little cartoon factoids about bats leading to the bat house at the Gotham Zoo are the framework for the entirety of what Absolute Batman is doing, stating from the top that everything we thought we knew about who Bruce Wayne is, it's being changed. Young Bruce encounters these plaques during a school trip to the Gotham Zoo in 5th grade. Immediately, we're presented with a vision of Bruce that is completely different from the Bruce we once knew. He's incredibly intelligent, sure, having won a trip to the zoo for his class as the grand prize of a student engineering competition, but he's still just a regular kid. This difference between the old Bruce and the new becomes more apparent when we realize that his 5th grade teacher is his dad, Thomas Wayne. And we see just a few pages later that this trip to the zoo with his 5th grade class and his dad in tow is the day Bruce's life is changed forever by spree killer Joe Chill. The zoo, the namesake for this first arc of Absolute Batman, sits at the center of this new universe. It was here that Joe Chill went on his killing spree. It was here that Bruce and his class were forced to seek shelter from the killer in the zoo's bat house. It was here that Thomas Wayne lost his life defending his students and his son. It was here that Batman was born. Bats are weird, funny little creatures. They're the only mammal that can fly, they're more closely related to rhinoceroses than they are to other small creatures like them, they're shrouded in eons of human mythology and superstition. It's fitting then that as a horror writer, Snyder would choose to highlight this unsightly, uncanny, unglamorous aspect of a beloved hero that's been pushed to the sidelines despite the fact that it's right there in his name. It gives justification for and further strengthens Batman's newfound weirdo proclivities, all that rage and brutality and excess being not an unconscious result of unaddressed trauma, but a choice made by this universe's Bruce to build Batman to be, specifically, like this. An adult Bruce we have yet to meet. Absolute Batman's story begins properly with narration. A man on a motorcycle riding through the streets of Gotham, back in the city after a long time away. We assume, given the font choice and the tearaway journal scrap theme of the bubbles, that the person speaking is Bruce. Bruce is a guy we're used to seeing atop a motorcycle, monologuing angstily about Gotham, but the man takes off his helmet to reveal that this is Absolute Batman's Alfred Pennyworth, an MI6 agent sent to Gotham to do some intel gathering on the party animals and Roman Sionis, and potentially follow up on rumors of a masked vigilante stalking the streets. He's cold and calculating, an arsenal of cool spy tools at his disposal, but this isn't Bruce. We keep reading, hoping to catch a glimpse of Bruce, and it's not long before we arrive at a boxing gym, dingy and dark, a dark-haired, blue-eyed, muscular man at the bag, psyching himself up, telling himself he has no fear, no weakness, that tonight he's a... And that's when whoever this is interrupted by Bruce Wayne. Towering, frightening, brutish, this is our first look at Bruce, a few pages before we see his debut as Batman. It's fitting then that this man, biceps and quads the size of watermelons, would be behind this mask, but still, we won't really know who he is until Alfred, spying on him for his MI6 handlers, tails him after his fight with the party animals at City Hall. And what he finds is just another working-class citizen of Gotham. He was raised in Crime Alley, the place of the original Wayne's murder, his widowed mother, Martha Wayne, being the city's deputy mayor. He spent some time away from Gotham as a young man, going on the soul-searching spiritual journey pre-Batman Bruce always goes on, but upon his homecoming to Gotham, there's no rich boy's fancy study for him to go moping, waiting for the fateful moment that the universe presents him with the image of what he must become. If this Bruce is going to be something, if he's going to embody an icon larger than himself, then it's something he's going to have to get his hands dirty building from scratch. So he sets about learning the city, truly becoming one with it, starting his work in waste management, spending a stint interning at City Hall, learning the ins and outs of Gotham's bureaucracy, eventually landing a job as a civil engineer, working by day to fix and rebuild the city he destroys as Batman. Bruce and Batman then work holistically, destroying and recreating the city in his image. This is a Batman working to fix Gotham not from the top down, but from the bottom up. The entirety of this first arc is about Batman figuring out how to make this bottom-up approach work. How do you rebuild the city, inspire its citizens, reframe the outlook of an entire population trapped under the whims of the very powerful? How can a Batman like this, with no resources, with no connections, hope to make a difference? How can his solutions for Gotham and its citizens compete with Roman Sionis's? Black Mask's big evil plan is to give the people of Gotham, through his party animal masks, an easy answer to the cruel, unforgiving world he himself helped create. A horrific, unsettling little creature, he's the perfect foil to Batman not just in stature, but in ideology. He's a black mirror that reflects back the extremes of what the old idea of Batman used to stand for. An affluent, philanthropic man saving a city from itself, presenting vast sums of money as the solution to all problems, as long, of course, as they play along with his little game of raising Gotham. And it's a solution so strong, he goes as far as offering it to Batman. The war between Batman and the party animals rages until it hits an inevitable stalemate. Batman fighting back night after night, only to be met with ever-increasing numbers. But Batman, he's keeping up. He's stoking fear into the hearts of the party animals, he's performing ever-escalating stunts against them, we get the reveal of the new Batmobile, a repurposed city dump truck, but the fight, it's wearing him down. He's just one guy, by himself, his already thin stash of Gotham City municipal supplies running low, his body bloodied and bruised, his will faltering. And then Black Mask offers him a truce. Black Mask's deal is really quite simple. All Bruce has to do is stand down his activities as Batman for a measly 2 weeks, during which time Black Mask promises that the party animals will take it easier on Gotham. And then, after those 2 weeks, Black Mask will flush him with enough money for him to turn this Batman concept into something real, into something with enough funding behind it to make it last, to make it effective, to make it what we, the audience, remember Batman to be. Not this scrappy, weird, rough, dump truck driving lunatic, but a symbol, an authority. It's framed as the smart thing to do, the adult thing. Alfred, acting as Batman's reluctant sidekick and mentor for much of this arc, catches wind of the deal and advises Bruce to take it. It might feel like the wrong thing to do, to take money from this man, but in the end, he and his people at MI6 will be able to use the data gathered during this operation to eventually track down Sionis and take him down for good. He implores Bruce to stop looking at what's right in front of him and to look a little further afield and recognize all the good this could do, what this could help Batman become. Batman, so far, has shown some of the same aesthetic trappings of Batman, but he hasn't really felt like Batman. If this could help Batman be more like, well, Batman, then what's the harm? Bruce makes the deal. By now, we very clearly established that Absolute Batman sure is good at upending preconceived notions of what Batman is or can be. But the question then becomes, why? Why do any of this? I mean, outside of a mandate by DC to shake things up so as to sell more comics by surprising and pissing off fans. It's become pretty passé to even mention this, but the thing about Batman is that if you're being honest with yourself, then there's something kinda presumptuous about the whole concept. A billionaire playboy philanthropist with the mandate of heaven to reshape Gotham in his image, this power granted to him, yes, by the trauma of losing his parents, but also by the incomprehensible amounts of wealth given to him in their absence. We understand as an audience that he has good intentions, that he's just a fun power fantasy for kids and adults alike, but looked at under even a slightly critical lens and the whole thing kind of falls apart. Many good writers, almost exclusively in comics, have reckoned with this nature of the character. They've made him responsible for and to a gaggle of teens and young adults. They've put him in situations where he has to learn that he can't solve all of Gotham's problems by himself, if he can solve them at all. They've softened and humanized and made multifaceted this little cartoon guy, but they've always been working backwards. Looking back at a character with a century of published history and working out ways to mold and change that guy to better suit the times. Batman has always been someone you can look up to, that you can attempt to embody and be more like, that you can project your own history and trauma onto, but he's never been you. His struggles have never been truly relatable, his mystique and charm and authority having to compete more and more with the reality that in the real world, well, there are no rich men like Bruce Wayne. So then, the genius of Absolute Batman isn't just that it reinvents Batman as an everyman hero, relatable and embodiable by just about anyone, or as a product of and direct contributor to the infrastructure of Gotham through his career as an engineer, but that it creates a Batman explicitly, from the start, trying to disentangle himself from his trauma. But to do that, to give us a Batman undefined by the horrors of his famous backstory, what Bruce has to do is dig deep and figure out what Batman as a thing truly even is. The obsession with bats, the need to make something in their image, it's not something that came to Bruce when he arrived back in Gotham as a young man, or as a nightmare brought upon by the horrific death of his father. It came to him before all of that, when tasked with coming up with a project for a student engineering competition. The Young Engineers Competition, entered by 10-year-old Bruce Wayne and held that year at the zoo, tasked kids with coming up with a concept for a bridge themed around one of the zoo's animals. Since many of the animals at the zoo come from distressed, crisis-torn parts of the world, the bridges were meant to act as aid for these places. And out of all the animals Bruce could have picked to theme his bridge around, he chose a bat. Bats are intimidating, he tells his dad. The bridge prototype he's designed being this large, pointy structure that can support heavy loads, that intimidating form being something he thinks will make people feel safe, but that design, there's something wrong with it. He goes back to the drawing board. He comes back a few days later with a new design. The bridge is now more expansive, with rotatable girders and adjustable pilings, basing this new concept on bats being the most adaptable mammal on the planet, capable of using echolocation and other neat biological tricks to thrive in any kind of environment. He asks his dad if he thinks it'll win, and Thomas tells Bruce that he doesn't know, but that he should feel like his work is done if he feels like this bridge really captures what bats are at their core. How do you know what anything is at its core, though? Asks Bruce. Thomas tells him a story. When he was a kid, his dad worked himself to the bone driving a city bus, but on his days off would take Thomas down to Amusement Mile for a walk on the pier to go and get a frozen banana. It was a ritual the two cherished. But one day, his dad, while on their weekly outing, dropped dead of a sudden heart attack. It was that day that Thomas decided he'd become a heart surgeon. He was all set and ready to go to med school, but then Bruce came along unexpectedly, which forced Thomas to reconsider. He needed to figure out who he was, beyond a husband, beyond a father, and what he landed on was that the reason he'd wanted to become a heart surgeon in the first place was to ensure that no kid would have to know the fear he felt after his father died. And that's when he discovered that as a teacher, he could help to make kids feel safe. He could still satisfy that part of who he knew himself to be at his core. Figuring that out, really doing the hard work to know who you, or anything really, is at its core, it's a process. It's nothing you can work out immediately. It takes time, it takes practice, it takes trial and error, but eventually, if you really dedicate yourself to that process, you will figure it out. Bruce goes back to the drawing board. In other times, in other places, what Batman was, it was enough. He did the job he needed to, and for the past 100 years, he's done it well. But what this Bruce realizes is that he's been coming at designing the bridge all wrong, because it's not about the bridge, it's about the people. People who live during times of crisis, whose cries go unheard, who look around at a world that's falling apart at the seams. They need help. The Batman we had before, he's just not enough for this world. He's not enough for these people. So Bruce makes the bridge even more intimidating, even more adaptable and weird, pushing things so far it almost feels like it's too much, like it's stretched too far. But too much is good these days. Most important of all, though, this new bridge flies. It can be parachuted into places in crisis, to be set up and used by the people who need it however they see fit. It's something that belongs to them. What Bruce figures out is that at their core, bats are animals that defy the impossible. A crazy little creature that shows us we can beat our own odds, that we can not only survive, but thrive, no matter what. After the death of his father, Bruce is racked with guilt. If he hadn't designed the bridge, he wouldn't have won the trip for his class, wouldn't have made his dad sacrifice himself to save him, wouldn't have put his friends in his class, friends he's had since he can remember, in harm's way. And it's those friends that might as well be siblings, that Absolute Batman does the most interesting thing with I think I've seen in any Batman story. Because these kids, now grown into adults that are still an integral part of Bruce's life, in another world, they're Batman's most famous antagonists. Ozzy, Eddie, Harvey, Waylon, and Selina, these are Bruce's best friends. There too on the day that would permanently change each of their lives. They too loved Thomas Wayne. They too were traumatized by Joe Chill's horrific, random act of violence. They too are the products of both the best and worst Gotham has to offer. When Bruce is at his lowest, when he doesn't see a way out, it's they who are there to pick him back up, to show him that this pain, it's not just a part of him, but a part of them too. They're there to teach him, as a kid, that when we've been kicked down, when the world feels cruel and uncaring, that there are others we can lean on, that we can use their strength and support to take that pain and use it to be even more determined, to shape it into something useful and change. And as Batman, this lesson is something Bruce continues to contend with, leaning on his friends over the course of this arc, not just for the kinds of things the old Bruce would just expend his vast amounts of wealth to do, but for the kind of real, difficult support friends can offer when they know you're slipping, when they know you're in trouble and you aren't asking for help. They remind him at every turn that if he's hurting, so are they, that they're just as much a part of Batman as he is. So when faced with Sionis' offer of all the cash he'll need to make Batman real, it's even more shocking that Bruce accepts. We've spent this whole run building up how this time Bruce has the support he needs. He has a mother who loves him, friends who have his back, a frame of mind and perspective on what Batman can be closer to the core of the character than any incarnation of the character we've seen before, but still, what it all comes down to is money. Bruce can't be Bruce. Batman can't be Batman without the wealth needed to make him real. Batman goes to meet with Sionis to exchange words. Sionis asks him what he plans on spending it all on. Batman says he's already spent it. All of it. And what he spent it on is this: a signal light for Gotham at the zoo. The money, arranged on the light in the shape of a bat, set ablaze. Because this Batman, he doesn't need money, he doesn't need guilt, he doesn't need trauma, he doesn't need grief, and he doesn't even need revenge. This is a Bruce who visits Joe Chill in prison, whose forgiveness is not seen as an act of weakness, but of willful, hopeful defiance. Because this is a Bruce who's figured out that all Batman needs, at his core, is Gotham. All its beauty, all its violence, all its fear, all its community, all the multifaceted and rough edges that make Gotham Gotham, that's what makes absolute Batman. Folks, there's a lot more here I could dig into. From Nick Dragotta and Marcos Martin's excellent art, to the way it perfectly matches Snyder's writing, to how Snyder's knack for horror and action are truly on full display here, to the perfect, and I mean perfect pacing and layout of each issue, it would have all been too much to get into. I know this one's a bit different, but I truly feel like if you've ever enjoyed a Batman story, if you're like me and Batman has been a part of your life since the moment you became conscious, then you owe it to yourself to check this series out. Next one's going to be on a video game, so rest easy, fellow gamists, and make sure you smash that subscribe button and ring the little bell so you know when it comes out. Till next time, bye.